Yo guys, this is Theo. This is basically a little overview of my, my belief in God, if you will, my spirituality, whatever, everything that I can sort of think that I think is related to this. And I guess I'm trying to, in a sense, well, just present a worldview to you that some people maybe never have heard, really, or have heard or not quite grasped, you never know. But also kind of see how this leads into the practice that I do, uncommon sense. Holistic bodybuilding, as I kind of try to title what I do, what I practice myself and what I teach on the channel and what I coach others in. So kind of tie it in, the spiritual aspect to it all. So, well, in the beginning, the universe just started noticing that, I exist. I'm here. And I'm complete, I'm complete. I'm the one. But, yeah, I'm complete, but it all seems kind of boring, I feel like I don't really know myself. I just am. What do I do with this? I'd really like to get to know myself better, have more fun. And peace and quiet is nice, but that's not all I want. I want something more. So the universe decided to just split itself up into pieces and forget that it had done so. So it could have an experience, get to know itself better, interact with itself, but it can't know. The universe knew that I can't know what I'm doing to begin with, because then I don't get the chance. Like, part of exploring myself is doing it, not really knowing that I'm doing it. So there has to be a perceived separation here. So, yes, the universe is very much a universe of unity and duality. There is the one thing, right? That's just everything. But there is a duality too. There is a me and there is a you, there is a them, right? But both exist at once, okay? Both exist at once. There really is just the one, but it has split itself. It's sort of like an ocean, how the drops are, a drop is separate but still part of the whole, right? So this brings us to the Trinity. What is the Trinity? It is, so, the one, we take now, like, I'm not necessarily a Christian, like, I just have a belief. I hate saying it. I'm just spiritual. There's so much bullshit out there with the so-called spiritualism, but I just see these big religions as kind of different roads to the same truth. So, but we can take, for the sake of just explaining it, we can take the Trinity, the words from the Christianity. You have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? So the Father, that is the one that's just aware. The one who observes. So the Father is inside all of us. It is the one looking at Theo here. Theo is here, but Theo is really the Son. The one observing the Son is the Father. So, yes, the Son is it's the separate aspect, right? And so when you get perfect alignment between the Father and the Son, what it creates together is the third aspect, the Holy Spirit. Right, and so to illustrate this, let's see if you can see this. Yeah, this is kind of what happened. There was the one, it split itself in two poles. So it split itself in all these things, but for instance, masculine and feminine. And they are part of the same thing, but separate. But when you find perfect alignment, you have the Trinity, right? And so, where do we go next? What do you do with this, right? Because some of us have experienced this more than others. I started noticing, the Father when I went through all of that with a panic attack. I noticed that there was someone watching what's going on in here, And then, since then, I deepened this, right? And so what do you do with this? Well, because all of this, it's possible to talk about it from kind of psychological point of view, or Yeah, you more like it is science, basically, is what I'm saying. So how do we use that? Well, the ego and the observer, right? That's kind of, it's the two things here that together, when they work together perfectly, you have the Holy Spirit. But so, just starting to notice this, I guess I'm kind of trying to lead someone here, if they have never heard about this before. You can do this via meditation, but also something I've been pushing a lot on the channel, the silent prayer. When you really just sit down to observe your inner world. And you're going to notice that there is a storyteller, a voice telling all these stories, reacting to different things. Oh, I wonder what that is. I'm going to do this later. Oh, I wonder what they will think when I do this, blah, 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 blah. That's the ego, the one that notices this, the one that looks at this. That's the observer, right? And so to use this to your advantage, because some of us, we are kind of aware of our ego, the story that it's there, but we can't do much with it. We're like, yeah, I know it's there, but I seem to be walking in the same traps in my life all the time. You know, I seem to, I know exactly what I'm doing when I'm failing to finish my fast or stay consistent with my diet and my training or whatever it is. You know, I'm thinking all these things to myself. I'm very aware of that, but I somehow don't manage to do anything with this. Well, there is an aspect of the mind that's not just your conscious thinking here. You have an unconscious and subconscious, and those are always at play, and you can't see them in the same way that you see your ego thoughts, the stories like that, or your emotions even. Like the emotions actually are related to more the subconscious. But so, when the ego and the observer, like when the ego mind that thinks and uses reasoning and that, works together with the observer, they can identify, without identifying thoughts like that in here, they can see and discern different patterns in your life. And when you know patterns, now you can start taking conscious effort to do something differently over time. And then, of course, this we could go into so deep, like you're figuring out where do these patterns come from. Childhood, a lot of it, of course. But you're going to create other patterns in other relationships as you're more grown up, or other life experiences you've had. So I put here as the next kind of bullet point, trauma, triggers, attachments, patterns. Those are the things that you want to be working on in an introspective practice. So again, the observer, instead of just reacting to everything the ego is telling it, like using it as a tool to kind of figure out what are my patterns, where do I come from, what trauma responses do I have, what attachments do I have. And you do this with a kind of silent prayer, introspective meditation that I talked about, or journaling. You know, it's an exercise in observing yourself so that you can do things differently. Yeah, I put react versus respond. That's when instead of when you go into similar situations, similar patterns, similar thoughts appear, when you're actively trying to change this, you always get a little opportunity to not just react and go with autopilot, your current programming in the subconscious and unconscious there. You actually have an opportunity to respond. And of course, this is not something that you always can change things like that, but this is what you start doing. And so you want to start using the world as a mirror, okay? If you think something is wrong in your external reality, may that be just the way you look at where, like, oh, it's crazy with these things, political things happening, or these things happening in society, or you just feel like I'm lacking all these things, I don't have what I want, people do this to me, I don't have a girlfriend, I'm not happy with this, but whatever it is. Well, you got to realize that the external is just a reflection of the internal. You are looking at the mirror all the time. And if you don't like what you see in the mirror, you can't complain about the mirror. You can't try to change the mirror. It obviously doesn't work, right? No, if you want to change what you see in the mirror, you will have to change what is reflected in the mirror, and that's you, right? So, to the spiritual aspect, this is something that a lot of New Age spirituality gets wrong. that they are all love and light. It's all the focus on healing and, oh, let's get together and manifest this and high vibes and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, that's part of it. But with this duality that the universe had to... The thing is, the Father, this creative force is really of love. Love is its true essence, but it has its shadow aspect. It has to have it for it to experience this, kind of play the game of duality and unity at the same time. So there is darkness, and you shouldn't shy away from that, because it's easy to think, especially when you've had like spiritual experiences and you've had like taste of enlightenment. You can easily think that, oh, that's all there is now. Like this blissful state that I managed to achieve at times, and when I see things so clearly and I'm feeling so well, blah, blah. That's all there is to it now that I've healed or whatever. But no, you're going to have to face a lot of darkness inside you, peeling layers on a healing journey or a spiritual journey, self-reflected journey like that. So you need to embrace the darkness. It's actually... when we have the light, access to the light, that's when we can really accelerate and build a lot of new things up. But it's when we go through that darkness that we actually get a chance to see, truly see the aspects of ourselves that we don't really like. But that's, of course, part of it. We want to run from it. We don't want to admit that that's us. But it's when we go through the darkness, that's when we can actually peel these layers, reach a higher level, and enter a more state of being connected with the light again and start building up new things. But don't run from the darkness. There's supposed to be a dark component to life. And it's the same thing that you've heard me talk about on the channel before. That if you have a video game, there needs to be bad guys. There needs to be a villain or a boss, you know. If it's all good guys, what is the point of the game, you know? So it's actually, you know, the evil people of this world, they are just playing their part, really. Yeah, but we're going to come to that. We, of course, have masculine and feminine, too. Like, that's how I kind of illustrated this, too. Those are the two different poles. And they exist both, as in us humans, there is a masculine and a feminine. But within men and women, there exists a masculine and feminine polarity as well. You know, you can think of the yin-yang symbol. It illustrates it very clearly. And so masculinity is, you know, is the force more for creating order and structure out of the chaos that is the feminine, having direction, building, being active, while the feminine is more like essence, force. It's soft, it's nurturing, it's like, yeah, and it is chaotic. It's more emotion-driven like that. But together, when it comes together with the masculine, that's when you get the Holy Spirit, right? You get that perfect balance between the two. And yeah, there are... So the universe, it's basically mathematical. You know, I can't say that I know the whole formula or anything. But there are universal laws and basically karma. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on here that what you put out, you get back. It's not always that straightforward that way, but the universe is perfectly balanced. So to every reaction, there has to be a counter reaction. And so, like this, we could go into very, very long. It's almost its own subject. But it's something that's kind of, you know, when you decide if you want to play the game of good and evil, you know, just know that when you like align yourself with greed, for instance, that is more of a dark shadow thing, right? That might align with getting money, for instance, but it might also align with getting enemies, for instance. So, you know, we have to be aware that our actions in this universe, good and evil, they have consequences. We always pay the price or get the reward somehow, right? Like someone doing evil, it's not necessarily always, they get the exact same thing back happening to them, but they're going to pay, if you know, sometimes just on the inside, suffering, the conscious that always knows, right? But so a goal we have here is basically to awaken, you know. We chose to have this experience and forget our true essence, so that we can have this experience and get to know each ourselves better, and elevate and take our existence to new levels, right? And then two, it's not necessarily happiness that is the goal with this, it's more meaning. But so then what you can do as a, I guess, light worker, but you are a shadow worker too, you know, but you want to be reducing suffering. It's more about more because, you know, if you think suffering in the polarity, happiness is kind of on the other side of the spectrum in a sense, and when you come closer and closer to the center, it's more that suffering has been taken away, but also anything else, because, you know, sometimes being too happy and full of, that leads to some kind of mistake that makes you suffer, and that want to be coming closer and closer to the center. And so, yes, heaven and hell, I don't know what happens after this life, really. Like, how could I? But I don't really believe there's like a hell, like a place you go to like that. Might be a heaven, I'm not sure. But what I do know is that heaven and hell is something that exists here on earth, you know. It's sort of a state of consciousness, or state of being, if you will. Like, yeah, when you're ruled by your shadow, whether that is because you're going through something difficult, or you're just choosing to act evil, you're somehow going to experience hell on earth. And then when you heal, when you peel layers and do what's right, align with the frequency of love, you know, you're going to experience heaven on earth. And so I'm going to get to the chat, by the way. I think it's mostly Twilight, but I have a few things on the list that I just want to go through. And yeah, to lead it a bit into, like this, of course, what you can do with this kind of practice is not only, of course, understanding yourself and our existence, like your own individual existence and our collective existence better. You can actually, this is how you get the outcomes you want in this life, you know, by learning to play the game, realizing what the rules are that operate this universe, and so how you align yourself with a path that leads to the kind of life experience that you'd like. So we're talking about trauma and triggers and unconscious, subconscious. It might be achieving a certain level of fitness, for instance. You might have, you know, trauma, subconscious and unconscious programming that it's keeping you from losing weight or building muscle or whatever. You might be struggling with relationships, may that be romantic ones, that you kind of don't find anyone at all, or you find the same kind of relationship that you don't want, you have a bad experience, or just with friends in general, the kind of job you'd like, whatever you like to achieve, you have to change you know, right? Again, with how the external world is just a mirror of you. Stuff you have because you are it. You don't have it, you are it, basically. So that's just why this is something to be aware of and have a, like, spiritual and introspective practice in general. But if we do tie it in a little bit to what I do at the holistic bodybuilding, like, of course, apart when I work with clients, these are the kinds of things we talk about, just more like one-on-one, and their things, their patterns and stuff like this, you know, working on the self in this way. But the body is, of course, the temple of God then. So you want to build a nice temple. It's going to bring to your spiritual experience as well. So you do that, of course, by taking good care of it with proper movement and training. You can actually strengthen it in that way. You feed it with good fuel, good nutrition and diet, but it's not only that, it's of course everything you take in, meaning even air and water, stuff like this, avoiding toxicity, but this is true for people as well. What other minds, what other things do you let get inside your vessel here? And this is the thing, and this is something I think is missing from so many, like you know, the Greek philosophers and stuff. They had it right. They were working on all of this. They were working on the body and the mind and the soul, the connection between all of it. These days, it's not like bodybuilders, fitness people. They hyper focus on just the physical, right? There's a whole lot of spiritual people that they aren't into the physical at all. There's some kind of hippie thing, like, looks don't matter, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, just embrace the entire thing here. You want to be building yourself up on every level. And it's just that, yes, that's something I've come to learn a lot. I can see how some people are really thriving with in life with less of not quite as optimized physical health that they could have. But the thing is, your spiritual or mental health affects how well your body is running as well. But it's just that you can't just argue with the fact that even if you manage to address your trauma and shit without training and stuff, and you eat a more poor diet than that, even if you manage to do that, you would still be better. Everything would be running more smoothly if you were actually working on the body like that. And this is why it's been since the start. I started my bodybuilding, when I started realizing these things, I had this kind of spiritual awakening. And that's what I think is kind of unique with my approach here. And I'm really looking for, people that work with me and that still do, they get it. But I find it sometimes a little hard to kind of present it, show what I'm really about. Because absolutely, I am the bodybuilder bro. I like the training. I'm interested in that, like that too. But it's not what the practice is about. It's just a part of it. That's not the thing, if you see what I mean. And you can get everything you'd like from, like all the kinds of just more technical bodybuilding goals you can achieve even with this approach. So I'm just like, why not? Why not make it into a bigger practice? But yeah, that's a little presentation. We'll get to the chat for a bit now. So Twilight, occupying, we need action. And get where you're going with it. True, I always think that someone is watching. Yeah, it's the funny thing, when you, like God is always watching, it kind of seems like there's someone in the room with you, but that's not the thing. God is watching through your eyes all the time.